I want to bring up, we have a treat here in the audience, Olivia Hamilton, who plays Pat White. So. Welcome, Olivia.
Thanks for calling me a treat.
Yeah, well, you are. Tell us about the involvement with the families and all the research that went behind.
So for my character, obviously Ed White passed away in the movie, and Pat, unfortunately, never got over the loss of her husband and passed away, 10 years after. And there wasn't a lot of material about my character. The astronauts all have great interviews, but the wives weren't covered quite as well. So I reached out to her children, Bonnie and Eddie. Josh Singer had spoken with Bonnie already, so I knew she was somewhat open to talking about this, which wasn't a given, seeing how the space program impacted her life. She was only 10 years old when her dad passed away. And I flew down to Dallas and met with her, and she was amazing. I think they hadn't spoken about this in, a long time. She hadn't really shared with, no one at work knew her connection to the space program. It was kind of something she just contained. So I was amazed that she brought all these family photos and opened up about it, and we became quite close through the process, and I spoke with her brother as well, and Bonnie and then also the Armstrong sons essentially became like our historians for the movie. We would call them on set whenever we had questions, and then sort of built great bonds with them, and now they came to the premiere a couple weeks ago and in DC and brought their children, and it was just this amazing experience of feeling like, someone was finally acknowledging what their father sacrificed and they sacrificed, and it was really special.
And what was their reaction to?
Thankfully, they loved the movie, but that was what I was nervous about, just given how sensitive it was, and that we wanted to get it right. But yeah, Bonnie walked out of the movie and gave Mark Armstrong a big hug, and was very moved, and her brother Ed loved it as well. I think, as Damien said, NASA, for obvious reasons, wanted to maybe not, publicize the Apollo 1 fire and make a big deal about that. So I think they never felt like their father got the acknowledgement that he deserved for being the hero he was, and I think they're really pleased with how he's portrayed.
You're such a great foil to, pun intended, to Foy, because Foy is so emotional and confrontational. But from the moment we see you have this almost veneer of everything is going to be okay, and then we watch you crumble in front of us. That veneer is sort of crumbles down. Can you tell us about where did that come from? The fact that you built a veneer.
Yeah, well, I got that from Bonnie, from Pat's daughter, because I pressed her a lot. I was like, your dad was away all the time. It wasn't just when they were doing missions, but when they were training, they would spend, they were constantly just alone at home with the families. And I was like, did she ever complain? Was she resentful? Because, Janet, you see, has some reservations about NASA. And Bonnie was like, no, my mom she truly believed. Like, she was fully part of the team, never cracked, and was just positive and hopeful. And so I wanted to show that, and I think that is ultimately what is so tragic, about what happens to her. Ed is her whole life, her whole world, and she so genuinely loved him and believed in NASA. So when she lost him, it was like, who am I? Yeah.
And Damien, last question. What is it about these obsessive characters? From Whiplash to La La Land and now Armstrong. These are very driven, obsessive characters. Put you on the spot.
Lead-in question. I mean, it's maybe the only. It's probably one of the only traits that I can relate to in Neil Armstrong, because I don't, you know, I certainly don't have half of his courage. And if I saw one of those capsules in front of me, I would definitely turn the other way. But
they looked like coffins.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought too. But I guess his, you know, on a more metaphoric level, his approach to work, his the sort of also, I think maybe using work to funnel your emotions, you know, I could certainly relate to that. I see Neil as someone who, and this is probably something, again, he has in common with, you know, the characters of, well, certainly Whiplash. You know, Neil is someone who was confronted with such just overwhelming, unfathomable emotions that can cripple anyone, really. And the only way he found to not be crippled by them was to funnel them completely into his work. It wasn't to talk about them. It wasn't to sort of you know, bare his soul in any in any sort of understandable way. It was literally to just sublimate all those emotions into what he was doing. And so I don't know. I think that's actually something that, you know, obviously in his circumstances it led to completely singular things that are hard to relate to, you know, like being the first person to walk on the moon. But hopefully on a broader, more human, more universal level, you know, there's something there that we can all relate to, that, you know, just what do we do when confronted with questions or emotions that are just not answerable, or don't seem answerable here on Earth. You know, it seems to me to actually make sense that Neil might have just turned his attention to the stars and to what's beyond, because what was on Earth was maybe at times just too incomprehensible.